Welcome to another episode of Optometry Profits Review, and I'm your host, Peter Precht. And today I am with the Optical Jedi, Rick Peralta. Rick's a 37-year veteran of the eye care industry. He's an optical writer, speaker, president of Golden State Opticians, vision source facilitator, a 2-year health site ambassador. I'll talk about that if you would. Hockey fan and player. It's my heart. We'll talk in depth about Optical Jedi, Instagram, now TikTok. Without any further ado, Rick, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate this.
I really appreciate you having me on here, Peter. It's always a joy to talk to other people in this industry who are trying to get us all to think bigger and bolder.
Right. And not be afraid to kick around the technology.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, and one of the things we didn't talk about preliminarily, but we will get into is branding and self-branding.
Absolutely.
I think that is something where you have poised yourself uniquely in that way. But I also want to talk about the benefits of that at an individual level and other lanes of opticians contributing to their craft, because that's really what we do is absolutely a craft. So you currently work at Focal Point Optometry. That's an independent practice. You said you've been there 10 years. Talk about your journey before that, and talk about the birth of Optical Jedi blog, if you would.
Absolutely. No, I'd love to get in kind of the nuts and bolts of how I got to be where I am today.
Definitely.
So I entered this field as a high school student way back. My mom had no involvement in this field as a somebody that worked in the field, but she was a minus 1250 with a 2 sil.
Oh, wow.
And she said to me when I was 16 or 17, why don't you become an eye doctor so I can get free glasses? And I just laughed like everyone does. And I thought to myself, well, I'm just this dumb 17-year-old kid that doesn't even know what I want to do. I had a bunch of interests in different areas, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I said, sure, introduce me to your eye doctor. Let me see what this is all about. I hadn't even had an eye exam at that point. It was just a foreign field to me. I was fortunate to have not inherited my mother's eyes. I was 2015 at the time.
Wow.
And so I went in and I shadowed him after school. He let me watch the full process. I got to watch pre-testing. I got to go in the exam. I got to put on the BIO, do the whole thing with the dilation. I thought, this is interesting. This intrigues me. It was like maybe a week or two passed, and he offered me a job. I think he saw the right level of curiosity and engagement. And when I first joined him, I'm aging myself, but this was right at the very forefront of digitizing records and creating some sort of digital database for patients. We're talking 1989, 90, right around there.
And right around 90,
yeah. And so I was brought in to start putting some data, taking paper charts, putting them into computers. And that's what I was initially brought into to do. And I was a week or two into that job when he's now retired, Dr. Thomas Fleischman up in Sacramento, he just tapped me on the shoulder and he says, Rick, come with me. And we walk over to the lab. We step back into that lab, and he opened a drawer like we did back in the day. We had just a drawer full of a bunch of broken frame parts, right? So you'd swap pieces out if you needed to on something. Mm-hmm. You didn't care if they matched as long as they fit.
Right. Yeah.
And he pulled out a frame that was all mangled to no end, and he says, adjust it. He says, adjust it.
Oh.
And I'm like, of course, again, just an idiot kid who's never done anything in this field. I kind of go panic mode. And he says, don't worry, it's really simple. Just do to it what it is. And that mantra has stuck in my head. Every day I touch a frame, I say to myself, do to it what it is, right in my head. It stuck with me. And it was such kind of a light bulb moment for me in a lot of ways, because it was a realization at how much it is a craft, that it is a skill, but it is grounded in science, and it's grounded in some basic physics. And if you can understand some basic physics, you can pour that into your craft and solve problems for people in really profound ways. And I just kind of fell in love with it. So within, a month or two from that, I'm starting to do the basics of, I'm doing pre-testing. I'm doing some dispensing. Next thing I know, I'm helping with taking orders. And this was all basically my senior year of high school.
That's perfect.
I went off to college fully intending to be an optometrist. I was a pre-optometry track. I did the bio degree, I did all the stuff.
Wow.
And when I graduated college, I was one physics class short of being able to apply to optometry school. But I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to take the test. I'm going to do the OAT just to see where I'm at. Didn't really even do anything other than, they have the sample questions in the application booklet. That's all I did to prep. It was a horrendous testing experience in getting it all set up. They changed the room on us without any signage. I was
No.
lost on a college campus trying to find where I needed to go. Finally got into the room, sat down to take the test. Felt like I finished it way too early, because I'm just was so stressed over the getting there. I'm somebody that is like I'm almost anal about being on time as being early, and so like if I'm on time, I'm late, and everyone at the office will tell you that. Like if I'm always in the office at least 30 minutes before everyone else, and it was a terrible testing experience. But then I got the results, and I was 86th percentile.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. I can do this. This is a field for me. And I went back to Tom Fleischman again to work in his office while I was working out how and when I was going to take that physics class. And it really kind of hit me hard during that stretch that summer after graduating. I didn't like the exam room. I didn't like the dark room and saying one or two, one or two. It was just the absolute earliest stages of therapeutics and optometrists getting into being able to deal with some medical issues, but that really didn't intrigue me. What I loved was this blend of style and craft and science to fit people with the perfect pair of glasses. I fell in love with
What
that.
and what did your mother see in you that did did that surprise her that you moved towards opticianry as opposed to being the doc, or did she
I
see
don't
you in
know.
that role, or did you ever ask her
I,
that?
I certainly don't think she ever saw me in that role necessarily. I mean, I was a solid a solid high school student. It wasn't like I had rough grades or anything like that. I always had a wide ranging level of curiosity. I could go off on you on like Thomas Jefferson and the idea of being that kind of enlightenment man that just loves everything, because I got my
Right.
finger, if I something anything intrigues me, I go as deep a dive as I can on that thing. And but I always stop short of going to the very bottom because something else catches my attention and I'm going to go flying down that path.
Thank goodness for other rabbit trails, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Everything is tangential. Everything connects, right? Um, it's like, and I don't, we never really talked about it. She passed away when I was relatively young, so I didn't get a chance to really ask her about what she thought about the path I was taking. I think, probably in the end, she probably would have wished that I had gone a different route with as expensive as college was, that I would be paying back those loans and everything else a little bit faster. But, after graduating, I fell in the field, and what I love about this, what I saw in my head for myself, what made me successful as an optician was that I was educating. I was teaching the patient about what could be. And in my head, that meant what I really loved was not sales, was not a marketing thing. What I loved was educating. I wanted to teach. And so I actually took a brief break from the field, went back to my college, and started working towards an education degree to be able to teach. And this was in San Francisco in the .com era, that
Right.
massive boom of 2000. And the industry, made it impossible to live there. When I left San Francisco, I left because the cheapest apartment I could find in the year 2000 was a studio for $2,000 a month, and that's what was listed at. But I lost it to somebody who offered 2,200 and round trip tickets to Hawaii as part of their deposit. It was impossible
Well,
to
isn't
live
that
there.
nice?
Yeah,
Right.
and I'm like,
Literally.
okay, well, yeah, quite literally, right? And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to stop short on this degree because I can't afford to live here anymore. And I ended up coming down to Southern California. And when I landed here, I'm like, well, what do I know? I know optical. And so I landed back in that field again. And like, there's one or two brief steps I took away from it, but every time I left, I'm like, I think this is who I am, because like watching movies or TV shows, I was always analyzing the glasses, thinking about what brand were they wearing? Was the anti-reflective accurate for the period? Were the glasses crooked? I couldn't shut it off. And like I just really fell in love with that aspect of things. And so as I landed in SoCal and I started to develop, and I ended up landing, very very fortunate, I landed in an incredible practice in Beverly Hills. I spent almost 10 years there. I became an office manager. I was the lab manager. It was an entire top floor of a medical building, staff of 25, 7 exam lanes. And I was thrown into the deep end a little bit there. Like I was brought in just as an optician when I first started there, and the lab manager in my second year left. he decided he was going to move on and do something else. And the doctor saw in me as the one who had potential to fill that role. And he said, so I'm going to give you a raise. I'm going to put you in this position. I want you to be the one to make a call on which labs are we using, get negotiating pricing, making sure that you're the one edging the lenses, you're putting it all together. And I was thrown into that end, and that lab manager was also the primary troubleshooter. He was the one that handled all the patients with the really complex RXs and why can't they see. We had several patients that were like 13 base out prisms with vertical prism as well. And it was like,
Right.
I was forced to learn on the job.
Sink or swim, baby.
Yeah.
Baptism by fire isn't always bad, though.
Yeah.
I think there can be some strong merit because you're exposed to a huge array rapidly, which again, it's not gonna sink in. It's not all gonna be absorbed. But remembering it and remembering basic do's and don'ts, I think those are critical.
Yeah,
So
and you develop your own little mantras to remind yourself on
right.
how to view things, and it taught me so much that like I've carried things forward from there. And of course, being Beverly Hills, we had lots of celebrity patients,
So cool.
and you have to, when you're dealing with a celebrity, you really can't say no to them. Like whatever they ask for,
Right.
you have to figure out how you're going to do it. They ask for a lens technology that doesn't exist. Well, let me figure it out. They ask for a frame that doesn't exist. Well, let me figure it out. And it really taught me a very different way of interacting with every person who sits down in front of me. And I've carried that forward now, not just with the patients now that I'm working in a suburb in Orange County, but also when I'm teaching on the road, I'm speaking at state conferences. I treat everyone in that room like that celebrity that was sitting in front of me in Beverly Hills. I'm going to laser focus on you. You're everything that matters right now. That's all I care about. Somebody else could walk in the room that I know is going to be waiting next for me, and I will wave to them. I'll put my hand up and say hi, but I never take my eyes off this person. It's all about you right now.
That's a gift. That's not easy to do, to be able to be. I'm sure you've seen them or even feel that way to some degree when it's a natural experience to engage others or be on an open stage. I haven't been on enough stages myself to say that I feel that way. It's nothing I fear. More so because I'm comfortable in my own skin than I am comfortable in any questions that could be asked of me.
That's the key. It really is.
Yeah, because when you do put it all together, when it's all presented in one shape or form, it's about a delivery, how people are felt, how you made them feel. One of my favorite phrases is getting back to what you were just talking about is this is what I can do for you. Because it's okay for you to rein in expectation as long as it's clear that you're trying to do what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where it gets blurry because there can be venues where the optician sometimes is aggressively moving towards what they know may be a better answer, but if they're telling you it's different, you have to listen. And
it's one of the trickiest things to learn, and one of the things I try to teach in my courses when I'm getting out on the field, no matter what subject I'm teaching on, I'm going to cycle back around to this. And I think that we may have already made our decisions in our head about what is going to be the right solution for this person, but they have to be involved and they have to feel like it's their idea. So you have to say, okay, well, I've got these couple different ways I can do things, and I want to know about your space. I want to know about your desires. And once they start to say that, and you're like, okay, well, I think this is the answer. Now they feel like they made the choice, even though I made the choice.
See, that's a technique. Where did you learn that? Because
well, I mean, honestly,
somebody must have taught that to you.
I don't know. Like I've felt like I'm good at absorbing what's going on around me and paying attention to things, even if I'm not like sitting there watching. I'm listening and paying attention to what's going on. And in Beverly Hills, we had this one optician. He'd probably been in the practice the longest, and he was the rock star. Quite literally, he played bass in a band. Like he was a rock star, and Howard would have, I'm not even kidding you. Now, again, this is an extremely busy practice. We're packed. When we have reps come in to choose frames, we're not seeing them until like 7 or 8 at night because we've been going past hours to finish everything up. And Howard he'd be sitting with his patient, laser focused on that one person, and somebody would walk in and he would put the hand up. That's where I learned it from. He'd put the hand up and say, hey, but he still stayed on that one person, and he would have them lined up 3 or 4 deep. All the other opticians are free, and they're like, no, I'm waiting for Howard. And that's what I like. I learned something from that. For better or worse, I learned something from that now, because now I have those stacks and I'm stuck like working late because people wait for me. But I know that I can engage and I can listen and I can find that level of connection. I think it's really important to feel comfortable in sharing who you are and finding that spot in which, okay, now I understand you, because you understand, like, we have a connection. It's like the Disneyland thing where they put the on the name badges, they put, where you're from, right? And that's a small way of connecting with someone. Like, oh, they're from my hometown. Now I understand them. And it's the same thing I'm doing, only I'm doing it through my words. I'm listening to them, and they mention something about, hockey, or they talk about Broadway musicals or something else that I love, and I can talk about it. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand your space. Oh, my wife's a teacher. I understand your space. I know what you're dealing with as a worker, as a teacher in a school. I get your environment. Now let's work together and find that answer.
Well, and I don't want to make fun of a small industrial town, but it quite feasibly, Beverly Hills might have a few better perspectives on framing a certain eye a certain way. They might have a different philosophy, regarding whatever set of eyes it may be.
Mm-hmm.
I always drift back to celebrities. You mentioned how, like, if a celebrity's asking for something, you're going to deliver on it. Well, let's take that 4 steps further. What if you're a celebrity and everything's going great for years, and all of a sudden you get a set of glasses and they're not working? They look great, and you're trying them on, and visually they're not working. And you come back a few times. Now you don't want to be the reputation there of being that pain in the butt, or maybe you do and don't care. I don't know. Either way, that's a interesting seat for a celebrity
Well,
to be in versus
yeah.
anyone else.
Oh yeah,
If that
absolutely, definitely,
if that makes any sense,
yeah, absolutely. It's because, like, they don't want to develop some of them at least don't want to develop a reputation as a diva and being like super picky. But they've, especially for the big high profile ones, the the world has been so designed to cater to them that they don't even realize
Mhm.
that they're asking for something that's not possible. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Get Shorty, but like there's this whole great joke in that. It's like that, Danny DeVito is the actor, the big star in the movie, and he comes in and he's playing a star, and he comes to a restaurant. He won't Celebrities refuse to order off the menu. They'll come in and say, "Well, I don't really feel like that. Can you make this, and this for me? Oh, and can you put this on the side?" And they get whatever they want, because people are like, "Oh, I want them to talk about my restaurant. I want them to talk about me." And that's kind of the approach I've taken about it, is when somebody has a difficulty, like, I don't care what it takes. I don't care if I'm going to have to eat redos. I'm going to keep working this until I figure it out. We're going to figure it out together. We're going to find the answer, because I want you to have the best possible vision you can get. There's a couple of years ago, I had a patient who's not a celebrity at all, and I quite literally spent over a year doing redos until we got it right. But we finally got it right, and they were happy.
Well, there's going to be a point where there's an answer that a question that wasn't asked, or an answer that is unveiled, and the light bulb goes off. And yeah, some you ever hear people describe the halos they used to see with polycarbonate, and I could never
Yeah,
understand a halo. And then finally, someone was able to articulate it with an actual camera lens, and I was like, oh. Wait, they
yeah.
actually see that? I never did. I mean, I never
Mhm.
experienced it, but he was like, "Yeah, that I've seen that with these certain types of glasses, and I work in photography." And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, all of a sudden
it's
things
it's
began to
so great when you have,
connect.
yeah, when you can have that, an individual, whether it be a patient or just even somebody in outside daily life, that can unlock something for you and give you a new perspective on how you can sit down and help people. It's really powerful experience.
It
And I
is.
and perhaps because of dealing with my mom with her minus 1250 all my life, like, I had a deeper understanding of how challenging lenses can be. Watching her struggle and have to get redos made, and having custom Zeiss glass lenses being made in Germany and have to be shipped back, and waiting 2 months for to get them and then them not work, and understanding those frustrations, like, it gave me a window into how an important of job we have.
Well, it
Because
sounds like
it's like
she
the
was
prescription is only part of it.
right, but it sounds like she was, just from what you just mentioned there, the 2 or 3 sentences used. It sounds like she was used to a level of quality, a level of understanding. Obviously German lens technology that's exposed to her in the '70s.
Mm,
She was thinking differently. I think her
yeah,
approach was maybe a little, but she also had an atypical circumstance.
yeah. And so
When,
she was fortunate enough to land in offices that were forward thinking enough that they would try to find the solutions for people. And again, it's like that was the first place I worked, was a place that was thinking beyond just the standard care, but how could you do the exceptional care?
Imagine all the ugly offices that she had been through and
Hmm.
seen, and all the different because when you're minus 12, I can't relate to that. When you're minus 12 from the get-go, by the time you've hit your 50s, you've got a plethora of eyewear and contact lens experiences to
Yeah.
look back on, so that when you hear things and then see things come into focus and you can see people's reaction, for her, it was probably in that focus moment she could see the elation of the optician, or she could
Hmm.
see the pleasure of the whole experience for the both
Yeah,
of them.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I think that that's something she certainly wanted her son to be involved with,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. It's a little unique that it comes out of a situation like this where there wasn't family, but there was
Hmm.
veritably just extremely high myope.
Yeah.
Did
I mean, when she took her glasses off, she was literally pacing the glass or the like a book against her
right?
nose in order to read it. And so that's what I grew up watching. Is she struggled to read, but she was a voracious reader. So she would sit on the couch, take off her glasses, hold that book right up against her nose, and that's how she saw. And like every time I sit with somebody, I have that kind of in the back of my mind. When I sit down with any kind of high myope, I'm like, I understand you. I understand what your needs are. I understand what your problems are, what your difficulties are, and I can help you with this. And certainly part of it is obviously, prescription, lens design, all these things are
Right.
important, coatings are important, but it's also about lens mounting. And how do you get those lenses to look as good as possible, to sit properly, not splay the temples? And that's the kind of things that I did learn an awful lot from that experience in Beverly Hills, working with extremely high prism prescriptions, and like, how do I make this better than perfect? Like, not just that I get the lenses a fit, but how do I make them look even thinner, even though they can't be? And that's a great joy I get today still, is that even though I don't do as nearly as much edging as I used to, I hold those difficult ones for myself because I know the lab will never get it as good as I can.
Well, and I don't know how this isn't that long ago, but how manual is editing? How much editing is actual manual? How much of it is all the length that you and I are at our computers right now?
Hmm.
I don't. Is it an inordinate amount of that, or is it a lot closer? I would imagine the film industry would have a huge array of eyewear needs.
Well,
Of
absolutely. I have a very
color.
good friend of mine who actually worked with me for a brief stint in Beverly Hills, and she was a lab monkey. All she wanted to do was be cutting lenses. That's what she loved. And a good probably 5 years after we worked together, she ended up getting really lucky and landing a job making the glasses for movies and TV shows.
Oh,
She
cool.
works in a very specialty place where they have just shelves and shelves of vintage eyewear. And when a studio calls up and says, or a prop designer comes in and says, I need this thing, then they make it. And
That's
so
awesome.
the things that she's made, you've all seen it, in
Right.
Netflix shows and and big blockbusters. She's has a blast doing that. She's not on set. They don't really put opticians on set, which is a shame because they really should. How many times have we seen glasses crooked in a movie and it makes you want to scream? But
How many times do we want to see a sitcom
yeah,
taking place in
right.
a dispenser?
Yeah. Oh, please.
Probably
I've
not.
had
Right.
well, honestly, I've seriously talked quite a bit with more than one person in this business, like, and there almost seems to be an interest in it. Like, I want the office as a sitcom set in an optical shop. Like, I can see the side eye glances when that person comes in with the broken glasses. Like, I don't know, I just opened the case and this is the way they look like. I mean, you could have a field day with the things that we deal with on a daily basis.
Well,
And
there's this dry sense of humor, but there's this dark sense of humor too, where
yeah,
it's
it can
like
get super dark for sure.
it could really. I can
and,
see a
and then
lot of
and then you got
pretty
that great,
comical
like,
scenarios.
absolutely. And then you put in the intergenerational dynamics that you get in offices when there's one or two that are in our age group, and the vast majority are more like in their 20s and 30s, and like the communication breakdowns that happen just because we're talking different slang, or even like I most of my dialogue is in movie references, and they have no clue what I'm talking about, and I'm like, how could you, like, you're out of your element, Donnie? How do you not get this?
I remember in my early safety days, I just put this on a post somewhere, I think on LinkedIn, but in my early safety days, I had a scenario where I was meeting with a practice and I didn't have this account, but it was a very, very prominent central PA account that did bought a lot of safety. A lot of people worked there. A lot of people needed safety eyewear. I was trying to get the account, but there was a common abbreviation, which didn't occur to me. The name of
No.
the facility, well, the name of the facility, the abbreviation is TMI. And I'm sitting here yapping on just like I am with you, and they're saying TMI, TMI, and I'm like bowing my head and heading for the door, and it was extremely. I got to my car and I'm like, what are they? Oh my god, it was 3 Mile Island they were talking about. It wasn't. It had nothing to do with it. Too much information. So I was like, oops.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
I felt so stupid because I should have known the abbreviation, but none of their tones changed, so I was kind of going with it. But I was
Hmm.
like, okay, it's time to stop talking.
Yeah,
Because when you're saying too much, you're saying too much, and you just
there you go. Absolutely.
it is what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do want to, I want to hit real quickly on an overall philosophy of education. Talk about how, because we're in a similar situation. We've been in a state where we're trying to grow opticians together in the best way we can, but the requirements don't exist right now.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
how successfully are you able to have conferences, gatherings, get-togethers? Are there CEs? How is it going
Sure.
in general across the Golden State?
Well, so we're in a very unique situation, I think, in a bunch of ways here in California. First, as big and as dominant as the state in so many other aspects across pop culture, American culture, regulations, so much is driven by California law. But
Right.
up until this point, California has never had a statewide opticians association. We've never had an organization until this year that was based to try to actually bring everyone in this eye care industry together that's not doctor driven. So, it was when like I said, I've been in this business for close to 44 decades, but because I'm in a state that didn't require anything, I approached it kind of like, well, I know what enough. I'm good. I know I'm good enough. I don't need those initials. I know what I know. And especially with the baptism by fire I had in Beverly Hills, like I came out of that going like, okay, this is not just a job. This is a career and I know I'm good at it.
Right.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
so, like, why do I need those initials? And when I joined my current practice, so roughly 10 years ago, when I came in, there was kind of a light bulb moment for me early on, and it wasn't even in my practice. So, I had a really good friend of mine who lives in North Carolina. Tracy posted on Facebook that she got her first progressives, and she posted this selfie wearing these glasses that did not fit her. And I'm like, I don't know what progressive she's wearing. I don't know what design she's wearing. And so I messaged her and I just kind of reached out gently and I'm like, so I mean, I'm glad you finally took the step, but can I ask why you didn't reach out to me? And she said, well, you're in California. What could you do for me? This was just like the aha lights in the skies moment of, oh my God, how many people are making this terrible mistake on their eyewear choices because they don't know what questions to ask. And so I created that blog that you mentioned. My Optical Jedi blog was created in that moment as a tool to educate patients, not eye care professionals. I created that to try to get patients to understand some things. And it's not the most scientific language. I try to make it as simple and layperson as possible, using lots of metaphors and analogies to get them to understand what we're thinking about on our other side of the desk, and to make sure that they're getting the right care they should be getting in their office they go to. So if they can go in with some tools armored and say, okay, well, which lens are you giving me? Which coating are you giving me? Because so many places just say, oh, you need a progressive? Take some dots and walk on. They never even tell you what lens you're getting. And that really drives me nuts. And so let's try to provide some tools. And very quickly, and talking about branding, so when I landed on this name, the first URL I saved for myself on this was the eyes have it. I thought, oh, that's really cool. It's like this
And
is
that
all
is
about
cool.
eyes, and we've got it. And then I
Yeah.
typed it out, and I realized that it looks like it said I shave it, and I'm like, I can't use that one. And
Oh,
I've got to
that's
come up with something else.
hysterical.
I've got to come up with something else. And people, I mean, for those not watching the podcast here, I have a passing resemblance to George Lucas, and
You
I've
do.
been and I'm a gigantic Star Wars nerd. I've been one of the organizers for the group that camps out at the Chinese theater for all the movies. So I'm deeply entrenched in the Star Wars world. Everyone for years have been calling me a Jedi because like they say like I mind trick patients into doing the right thing because and I'm like okay, I'll lean into this. I'm an optical. I'm a Jedi. I'm gonna that'll will be. I'll be the optical Jedi. And I could not have stumbled onto a better naming for myself, other than the fact that I could potentially get sued by George Lucas someday for using his terminology.
Just
But
stand next to him.
yeah, but Yeah, I'm like, oh, you can't sue me. I'm him. Yeah, it just immediately clicks for people, and it's still a little surreal to me when I go to conventions and conferences, and people I've never met, I have no idea who they are, and they walk up and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the Jedi," and they want a picture with me, and I'm like, "How did this happen to my life? I did not see myself becoming that." Like I was just working in offices. That's what I did. But I crossed this threshold of like I can help people beyond just the office.
Individual branding opens doorways to the professional exchange, to other options, to speaking, to and there's more than nothing wrong with it. It's encouraged. I encourage every optician to explore your creative juices.
Absolutely.
You may want to try something, and you may try other things in the process and find that you're quite good at the other things.
Hmm.
It-
Well, and
we don't
this
know.
is an this is an industry that offers so many avenues to that ABO after your name. Like you can do so many things. You can work in an office. You could be a frame rep. You could be a lens rep. You could be working at the design level and creating the lenses, creating what the next generation will wear. Like so many things you can do, and like you don't know until you start dabbling into it and finding it.
You mentioned earlier teaching. And to me, I continuously come across opticians that, they're done dealing with patients in a dispensary. But whatever level they can get involved with teaching or coaching or
Absolutely.
mentoring
Hmm.
other opticians, they are interested in that. And there is a pay it forward philosophy that is almost embedded in what we do. I think it has a lot to do with the gratification of helping people see,
Hmm.
but also the ability to cope with when people can't.
You don't go into any kind of healthcare role without caring about people and helping people. That's inherent in what we do. And I don't think that's something you ever leave behind, no matter what position you're in. You still inherently care about helping people. That's the essence of what we do. And it's funny you say that too about speaking and being part of the teaching process and everything else and the other ways you can do things. We have a friend visiting from England right now, and we were having this really great conversation. I was driving her out to see some of her other friends locally, and we were talking about kind of long term goals and career. And I'm like, I'm no spring chicken, I'm in my 50s, and like there's in theory there's a finite level of a number of years you can be doing this in an office, and then you're gonna have to move on to do something else. And I know it's still a ways down the road. I still feel overall pretty healthy, and I'm engaging on a level that I never did in any other point in my life. But I'm like, the speaking at conferences, the teaching in the field, I could retire from working in an office and still keep that going and still be a supplement to retirement income or whatever else I want to worry about. Because in the end, I can't fathom not doing this at any point in my life. I can't fathom stepping away from this and just sitting at home. Is even with all the other passions and things I love, even with the hockey and with the national park touring and travel and all that stuff, I even when I tried to step away in the past, I couldn't turn it off. So like it's still going to be a part of me no matter what. And I think that's true for a lot of us that have taken it from being a paycheck and turned it into a career.
Well, and to be able to make it portable in one
Mm-hmm.
way, shape, or form in another,
Mm-hmm.
so that you do have those freedoms to do the travel and still stay grounded somewhere, be able to touch base and get back in and hold a frame and see a face and talk to the regulars that you've been helping for years and years. And
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's a huge part of everything that we do and how we do it. We can't do anything further with this discussion until we talk about technology ups and downs,
All right.
and then obviously your advice. So 30, 38 years nearly. You're coming up on 40 years. I mean, let's hear it. What has been
Well,
a really wonderful and what has been really really bad, and what's your
Well, yeah,
advice?
absolutely. So it's interesting because, like, when I really pause and think about it sometimes, and I think about the evolution I've seen in technology in this field over that full 4 decades, it can be kind of mind boggling at times. It's like
Right.
when I started, there was no such thing as transitions. It didn't exist yet, and it was like in my first year was when that product came out, the first generation. And
Hmm.
you look at that performance of that first generation versus what it does today, and it's light years improvement. And then you talk about progressive lens designs, and when you're dealing with 20 or 30 lens designs at the very beginning to now, a few thousand options available to us, it can be overwhelming, but it's also kind of incredible that we have that many ways to really tune the lens design to matching the patient need. And I think that's probably the place where I have the deepest connection and passion for the technology and the evolution in this industry. I started wearing progressives well earlier than I needed to, because I really felt like I couldn't present it to patients unless I wore it and understood it. So I started wearing in my mid 30s with the lowest hat I could, and started building up a portfolio of lens designs I've worn. Many of them have been
Interesting.
retired now and don't exist anymore. But at this
Right.
point now, as of last week, I added 2 new lens designs to my collection last week. So I'm now up to
Crazy.
252 different progressive
Oh my
designs I've worn.
gosh. That's crazy.
And I feel like it's given me such a deeper breadth of knowledge to
No
understand the
doubt.
pros and cons on designs.
Right.
But also, it's more than that. It's allowed me to see that and tell patients this, the ones that are terrified of progressives or failed with them in the past.
Right.
It's like, no, you failed on a design, not on a category. It's like saying that, I used a cell phone once and I couldn't figure it out, so I can't use a cell phone ever again. It doesn't work that way. The first cell phone was a brick that was as big as a car, and now you can, it's a full blown computer in your hand. You can do anything. You can dive back in and find that one that works for you. Some people are iPhone people, some people are Samsung people. The same goes for progressives. Not every lens is for every patient, and you have to find those solutions and be open to looking beyond just the one or two that you always work with, and realize that we've got a golf bag, and find the right club.
That's a really good point. I can't tell you how often, and I'm not going to push any specific opticians under any buses, but very seasoned opticians that deal with 3 lenses, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That
Yeah.
is all they ever do. And I'm not, if their patients are happy and everyone sees and that it's all good, then just shut your mouth, Pete, and get on with it.
Mhm.
But like you just said,
But
you,
like,
you
but
got
it like
all
they can,
those clubs in there.
yeah, it's like they can see, but could they see better? Right? That's the thing for me. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, they could be
Exactly.
happy, but could they go, "Oh, wow, I didn't know it could be this good." And that's what I'm always hunting for.
Well, right. You were hitting on it earlier. That is that craft skill component of
Hmm.
that separates the craftsman, the skilled optician, from someone who's slinging product or
Hmm.
saying, "Let me know what you choose," and we're writing that up. And everyone's been there in a very busy day. I'm not, bashing
Yeah,
any churn environments or whatever for any other purpose than it does squish some of the ability to show those expertise qualities that
absolutely.
that we were
Then
talking about.
they're going to see us as an order taker.
Right,
We're the cashier at the McDonald's at that point.
right, right.
Right? Like, we need to be thinking beyond that and saying, can we give them something they didn't even know they could do? And so, like, I every time I sit down with somebody, whether they've worn progressive for years, or they're brand new to it, or they're terrified and they've been fighting it for longer than they should have, whatever. Even if I don't get them to jump to what I think makes the most sense for them, as I'm handing over that receipt, I'm in their prescription, I'm still going to be wrapping things up by saying, there's so many new ways of doing things. Things could change in the next couple of months. So don't give up on it. Let's talk again next year. And I might even toss out, well, there are even frames now that are hearing aids. Like, I can fix almost anything. I just need to know what your problems are.
Well, you're setting up the future engagement by
Hmm.
pointing out that there's continuous technology that's coming through the tubes,
Exactly.
and
It's
that.
not, we're not in a static business at all.
No, and that's what is so cool, because even when things come back in and get reinvented, this little bit of resurge of flat tops and flat top edging problems and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I snicker at them because I dealt with them 35 years ago, but it's
Hmm.
at the at the beginning of the career, it's just interesting to see some of these things waving back through people's lives
Absolutely. Well, and what's interesting
like
too is
now.
this blending of old and new. So, like, you talk about like the flat top thing coming back a little bit, right? So that's
Right,
that's an old tech, but now we're putting these super modern, super slick coatings on them that didn't exist 35 years
right,
ago, and that's
right.
completely changed how complicated it is to edge that lens and keep it straight. And so it's like, yeah, like, there's still something for us old dogs to learn, because like, yeah, we understand the basics of how to fix it, but it's still different because coatings have changed so much. And it's I honestly, it's what I love about the technological advancements and how we can
Right.
engage with this is if you try to sit still and only offer the three lenses, then you're going to get passed up. Really, you're going to be left behind in the dust. You have to keep, like, I this is something I routinely say in my classes. Like, if I've got any downtime in my office, if I'm slow, I just open up Vision Web and start scrolling through the descriptions on lenses. And like, I see a name that I've never seen before, then I'm calling the lab and say, "What's this one? I've never heard of this. Tell me
That's
more."
cool.
Because
That's brilliant.
like, we have to keep engaged with the possible, and not every rep is going to know everything, or they're going to think that this doesn't match your needs in your office, so they're not going to stop by and tell you about it. You have to stay engaged, and reps are often going to give you a little bit of a marketing spiel, so you have to know how to filter that a little bit, so you reach straight to the lab and you talk to the people actually making the lenses, and you'll get a whole nother perspective than the one that's coming in to sell you the product.
Completely. And your lens person doesn't want to talk to that lens person.
Yeah.
So that's a nice liaison. That's a good way of bridging some of those gaps, especially if you can ask a question when someone's walking in, to talk to you about a new lens, and you're already asking questions about, like, I was just reading this about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's, well, not only
And
do they
it's
remember you,
yeah, for better or worse, you can kind of put people in their place a little bit. If they come in,
yeah,
you're like, oh yeah, I've heard about this, but I need to test it. Like, it's already gone beyond the I understand the technology, but I need to see if it actually lives up to what it promises. Put it on my face. And every rep that I work with knows that I will not sell products until I've had a chance to test them. They have to be worn by somebody in the office so that we can know if they actually do what they say they're going to do.
that's
My patients
smart.
are not my subject matters.
Right. Have you ever had patients ask about product that you ended up introducing?
Yeah, I've there's been once or twice I've had patients actually bring up stuff that I had not heard about, and that was always like, okay, now this just shocks me, and I need to know more.
Right.
And there's been plenty of times where, like, I really, so I could get in a whole soapbox rant about my preferred methods on how do I actually work with a patient in the dispensary, but I have a preference in general to make that patient sit down in front of me and never let them get up. I want them glued to that seat, and I'm gonna concierge some frame styles for them. We're gonna have a conversation about lens technologies. We're gonna figure these things out together. I'm trying to psychologically put put them on the same side as the desk as me. I'm not
Do,
adversarial. I'm conversational. We're working together.
well, is that a philosophy that was taken from Beverly Hills, or is
Uh,
that
I think it's kind of just my own thing. I didn't really pick it
okay?
up from there per se. I felt like, if, to the concierging of frames, maybe to a certain extent, like,
Right,
it's
right.
overwhelming to people to look at a wall of frames,
Gosh, yeah. Oh,
and they all start to look the same. If you're not
yeah. Mm-hmm.
initiated in the field, it's really overwhelming when you see a wall and they all look like rectangles in black. And you're like, what do I do here?
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
and I have, I mean, it's not maybe super obvious in the video here, but I have a relatively narrow bridge and it's low. And I have fought all my life finding frames, especially plastic frames, that will sit in the right place, not slide down, not touch my eyelashes. These things drive me nuts. So I've become so hyper conscious of this for myself that that's a major driver in everything I'm selecting for a patient. So, well, they might come in, like, I always start with a couple lead questions of, are you looking for a square frame or a round frame this year? Do you want a black or a tortoise, or do you want a square, or do you want metal? Do you want plastic? What are you looking for? I'll lead with that as I'm looking at the prescription.
How
Now,
much are we
by
changing from
glancing,
what I'm looking
yeah, so
at?
when I'm
That kind of
glancing at that
thing.
prescription, glancing at the prescription immediately gives me a couple of things. One, am I looking at multifocals? So that's going to change the frame selections a little bit. And am I shortening my multifocal list based on the power type? If I'm looking at that progressive in its area, the multifocal RX, and it's high SIL or high minus or high plus, that's going to change which progressive I found to be the best solution. So I'm shortening my
Right.
list of those multiple thousands of lenses and funneling those down a little bit, pre-selecting a little bit in my head to give a short list of how we're going to figure out what's the final choice.
Yeah. Based
And
on the
then,
experiences that you've seen. Yeah.
yeah, and so then, now I've had that start and I'm like, okay, they give me that, I've been wearing black. I want tortoise this year because it's always like they want one of two colors, right? I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go find some shapes for you, and don't worry, they're not necessarily going to be the colors you asked for. I'm just trying to find the fit first. So this is kind of a double loaded thing. One is I am definitely looking for the fit, but I am also intentionally forcing them to put frame colors on that they would never put on their face. And
That's
that will make them realize how good another color can look on their face.
People get set in their ways. They really
They really do.
don't they?
And
Yeah.
like every patient, I set my own personal goal. Every person I sit down with is I want to make you even a funkier this year than you were last year. And whether they know it or not, I'm always going to, okay, I'm not this year. You already went wild with your color last year. So we're going to make it a funky shape. You know, I'm going to, now you've tested the boundaries and you've discovered everyone compliments you for wearing the fun and funky frame. So we're going to go even funkier and make them even more thrilled with what you wear and go, where did you get those? And they'll come back to me. So this is my referral process. It's not you know yellow book ads or anything like that. It's about, look, I can help you in a way that you've never been helped before.
It's beautiful. And I've been having marketing discussions that are going to lead into very interesting decisions because of directions that I'm choosing to go with I see clearly, but not by my choice, but by society's choice. There are flagrant examples in the last 4 or 5 years of people that have gone on camera with really, really the wrong glasses on.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
opticians on Bayfoot gets exploded with those.
Right. Well, but let's be real about it. In 1 or 2 of those instances, we literally watch people that were behind a desk on a panel, and their in front of camera career just got knocked 6 or 8 years backwards because you had such bad advice from your optician, or you ticked off an optician, or I don't know.
And honestly, what you're probably dealing with in those situations is a situation where you let the patient wander and they choose a thing off the wall and say, I like this. And then you just say, okay, instead of saying, okay, I like that shape for you, but it doesn't fit. Let's fix that. Well, and that's my process.
Right. Well, and so, there's nothing more frustrating than for me when I see a frame that fits properly but doesn't complement the beauty on the face.
Absolutely.
I don't have an example I can articulate in this call now, but I really it's very frustrating when you see like a big set of big beautiful dark eyes and they've got this crazy light metal frame on, and you're like, God, you could really just pow those eyes out if you could just try this or try these 2 other looks, or
and that's
super thick or clunky. We can really do this elegantly.
It's like, exactly. That's the front loading I try to do by concierging frames.
See, that's
is
awesome.
That they're gonna like now. There's 2 things that happen when they do that. Is one is that they generally don't look at the price tag, because I just put down 5 or 6 frames in front of them and say, just try these on for me. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at me. And if you really dislike something, hand it to me. I'll make it disappear. And then we'll start whittling down to the shape that engages with you. But they're going to be putting on colors that I know are going to work on them. But they've never asked for it. They never wanted to try. Even this last week, I had somebody that's always black, always black, always black. This year, I want to try tortoise. And so I slipped in a green. And the green made her lies just like electric. And I'm like, and she was like, it's going to be this one. I like this. That worked.
I love that.
That's the key, is that you it's a psychology game. That's the mind trick, right? Is you get them to make it their decision even when it was really yours.
Well, you and I love hockey, and the Caps commentator, the play-by-play, is a gentleman by the name of Joe Beninati, and he is known for his eyewear. He's a small statured man. His eyes are close together, but he's got his optician's spectacular. He's got a really cool array of shapes that fit a little bit of a rounder head, but a small man. And his PD is narrow. Fantastic array of frame choices. And, the nerd in me, and all of us, is, whenever I'm watching him in between periods, I'm like, oh, he's got the blue one on tonight. Or, oh, he's got the, it's, I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's what we do,
and it's like I'm a Kings guy, right? And me out here in California, and it's like when you're watching the games and you see Daryl Evans come on, and he's always wearing the most elaborate, outlandish suit. And I've actually heard him interviewed on podcasts, and it's like they're all one-offs, custom made for him, and they're crazy. Like, you think Don Cherry wore crazy stuff? Forget it.
He did.
Daryl Evans got it all over him. But they all compliment him. They all look fabulous on him. And it's like, it's such a signature look that at the Halloween games in LA, people come dressed as Daryl Evans and wear elaborate, crazy suits. And that's become one of the signature things now.
I had no idea that it was
it's just, we're all doing Daryl. Yeah.
Oh my
It's a thing.
gosh.
But it's engaging with the personality and the
Right.
look of that person and making it all like dial up to 11.
And a branding that can really change things for the individual. You know,
Hmm.
we're hitting an hour, and I feel like we could talk an hour on branding. Well, you know,
Sorry, I'm a chatty guy.
no, you laugh about that, but I really do think that we should come back and talk very specifically about branding because it's a huge part of carving not just the identity for you to speak or teach or any of that, but it can allow you to be very specific.
And I
You've
think that,
talked.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that branding even goes beyond like a name you choose or a logo you choose, but the branding is also about which frame collections you're carrying in your place. Like that's part of your brand is how do you want to people identify your ethos?
Right. What drives you? What motivates you? What makes you unique? What makes you the same? What communities are you a part of? All of these things build parts of an identity that you can sculpt into your own brand, which is different. It is very the human branding component the ability that we have to do this in the eye care industry is unique. I think
Hmm.
it's unique poise and position to well, let's just talk about our generation for just 2 minutes here. How many people, how many rock and roll musicians from the '80s are going into glasses? You know, sooner or later, Sammy Hagar's going to need a pair of glasses on. You know,
Right.
and it is true that that's a change. Your face is your brand. You
Hmm.
know, I've mentioned people like Tom Brady before. But when you go into wearing eyewear, how you do it is critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more than critical when you're
Hmm.
in the spotlight like someone like him. So,
Hmm.
you know, making the wrong decision, making a by whim decision, deciding that you know all the answers
Hmm.
is you know is something that we're battling because we know that our value depletes every time someone clicks to buy glasses online and there's no optician there at all.
Well, and
So,
you've come back around to an interesting thing too, as like when we talk about the good and the bad of technology, and I feel like I mean, obviously AI is the big gorilla in the room, right? That's all anyone's talking about right now in this business, and I think, frankly, to a certain extent, I think it's a big detriment. Like AI has incredible value, I will not deny that at all, but I feel like when we start to use it for creating like logos and art, or we're using it to create descriptions and mission statements for our offices, I think that's where it starts to really collapse and fail us in a lot of ways. It might help you hone your vision a little bit, but in essence, what happens when you do that, and I know my daughter's a Gen Zer, and the Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids, like, they kind of despise AI, especially in the art, and it's really obvious to them
I've
immediately.
noticed that.
And
Well,
that's
they
that's aren't
fear identity theft is their big thing, and
yeah, and
I'm
it's
sympathetic to that. I am.
and I think the reality is that I mean, there's still it's been an interesting evolution to watch because Gen X in a lot of ways is still the forgotten generation. People don't think about us that much. So like everyone went from marketing and targeting boomers to marketing and targeting millennials, but they still don't really understand what millennials are. They think millennials are 20 somethings, and they're not. They're 40 somethings. And like and okay, so your millennials are really your progressive wearers. So you got to be thinking differently about who your target audience is and understanding that we are 5 to 10 years tops away from Gen Z being the dominant financial driver in the marketplace, and they despise AI. So you got to be really careful about how you engage with it. Use it as a tool for the science stuff, like the lens designing and that kind of stuff. But I think it can be a
Refinement,
dangerous thing. Yeah.
refinement from a craft that's established and in place.
Yes. Exactly.
Improving things that are clunky.
Yeah. Well, it's like when they talk about like using integrating AI to improve or modify a progressive design. That's brilliant. That's a great way
Mm-hmm.
to use it
It
because you
is.
can
Oh yeah.
you can you can take a bunch of data points from a bunch of different patient wearers and then say, okay, these are where they're unhappy. Let's fix those spots. That's a brilliant use of AI. But using AI for marketing is something you got to be really careful with because you're gonna disengage with a lot of your customers really fast if you don't do it right.
Yeah, it has to speak to your philosophy, like your set of beliefs, of how you do your business.
Hmm.
There's so many things that are in between the lines that forge an ethic.
Hmm.
You know, To some people, stealing a pen's no big deal. To others, it's theft.
Mhm.
To, I'm not here to define or judge either of those individuals, but theft is theft. And I don't know how to blur a line that's clear. I mean, I can give you the wrong prescription and do that, but that's not, it is an inherent problem that we're facing, that Gen Z you talked about. They want to get eyewear in a way that the existing ophthalmic dispensing system doesn't provide successfully or effectively or whatnot. I'm not saying that they all want to buy glasses online, but there's a healthy chunk of them that are going through the experience in a clunky, messed up
Well, and
way.
here's the interesting thing too, is
And it
that I
could be
will
a
say
better
this.
experience. It could be going better for everybody.
Absolutely could be. And I think that I'll tell you again, from looking at my daughter and her friends and everyone in her age group, she's 18, so she's kind of smack dab in the middle of the generation, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. She is.
They are much more engaged and passionate about tactile experiences and actually touching the product and seeing the product. That's more important to them. They do not like online shopping at all. They might use it as a resource for research, but then they want to go to a physical store and touch it. And that's important for all of us to remember, is that if you can have, if you can have the digital storefronts that give examples of the eyewear and explain how they're different from each other, design philosophies, manufacturing locations, materials that are being used, if you can spell that out on your website, you will be engaging with the Gen Z and Gen Alpha much better than you realize. They don't want to shop online. They want to research online.
It blows me away that somebody in their 20s wants to know why different acetates are different. It was farthest thing from my mind when I was 27, 28 years old. I did not care about that at all. I mean, it is interesting, though. They also have access to so much more information. Lord only knows what interests them. But that's another use for AI that I think is very useful and valuable, is that because, like I just said, Lord only knows what they're interested in. AI knows. And that is a better way of communicating with your patients. Because, I mean, let's face it, we may think we're super close with somebody, but if we're seeing them once a year, we're seeing them once a year. We don't see them every week, or we don't, we think we know Susie really, really well. We would know her a heck of a lot better if we implemented a few tools properly in our social media campaigns and our website management, things that we do. That really do change, where you direct your resources and how you handle.
It can feel counterintuitive, but I feel like one of the greatest tools that we can have to know and engage our patients better is to find ways to actually get them to come into the storefront more often. I know there is a tendency to think that, we're seeing patients, every once a year for exam, maybe every 2 years for an exam. I think what's the average right now, like 1.6 or something like that. But if you can build the proper conversation, relationship, discussion, not just at ordering, but at pickup, at dispense, and establish for them how important adjustment of those glasses is for them to see as good as they possibly can, and get them to come in for tune-ups and plan on it, maybe even start pre-booking tune-ups like you would at a Jiffy Lube, that you will have a better relationship with that customer, and they will be more excited because every time they come in, you can point out the new things that just came in that they didn't know about and keep them engaged with you in a whole nother level.
And you don't have to say it to everybody. I'm sitting here thinking of the 5 people that their plastic frame gets out of adjustment every 4 months. Like, what the heck are you doing, dude? It's like, and I have an idea what he's doing. That's part of it. But well, he takes them off. He falls asleep on them, and the dog sleeps on it. I mean, there's all these other things, but it is routine, and having that's actually brilliant. I really love that idea.
And
when
we
have come to the East Coast, just so you know,
I'm glad. I like one of the biggest drives when I created my blog, when I started my Instagram, and when I started doing all these things. Like the blog was created explicitly to educate patients, and then I created the Instagram to just have a more visual platform for that same idea. And immediately, almost like literally my second post, I discovered it was only eye care professionals that were engaging with me on Instagram. And it made me realize that there was a space for educating us as well. And I needed to fill that space. But I created
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to say, keep going, but connect the difference between your Instagram following and what you've experienced thus far on TikTok. Right. Me too. Until this year. This was my first year. as you should. Yeah, that's what I do too. Right. And obviously on TikTok, I'm more apt to plop in a video from the park or of Sadie or whatever. I mean, I'm okay with that. But it's certainly, I find the engagements a little pitch slappy. But by the same token, right, right. Well, I wanted to ask you about that. That's crazy. Well, and I'm totally about that. But there is a use for AI that, I mean, there's no question on different social media forums that there's certain feelings you get doom scrolling certain places, and then you do in other places where you're doom scrolling. At least that's for me. But well, and I'll be very succinct about it. X can be very brutal to me in my own world. But there's other engagements in other places that are not. It's very fluffy, candy coated, and TikTok in regarding our industry. But there are some fun conversations that are very in depth about energy and light and photos and nature. And I find those a little bit more engaging. I think in general, our industry is so slow to learn how to embrace these things that you're literally an ambassador to it. So for you to stick your nose in and say, I'm not here to monetize my TikTok. I'm here to take the same message I was doing over there and bring it over here. Because the reality is, I think it will resonate in the right lanes. I do think there's algorithmic benefits to TikTok that are above maybe what you and I have come to grip at all. If that's even a word. Right, 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 right. Which is cool. Well, and again, stay in that comfort zone. It's a branding thing too. I mean, you're one of the reasons I don't mind your videos is because they are quick. Speaking of that, yeah, it's the truth. Yeah, no, not at all. Well, I know that you're going to get your honest opinion of stuff. That's the thing that I do like. Even though you are connected to Vision Source and SLore and the transitions, all of that. If something is off or stinks, you're not going to say it's great, and I do like that. But again, you similar to me. It seems to me that you tend to find the positive. You tend to find the answers to here's what I can do. Here's what I can to connect. You're not here just to say what something can't do. Here's what the other thing can do for you. It is. Yeah. I largely use it for sports because athletes say stupid stuff on there, and most of the time it is stupid. Most of the time it's really profoundly idiotic and wasteful, and it's the one I spend the least time on. But there's no question that it is also the one that knows how to push your buttons better than the others, which is not cool. I don't like that about it, and it's probably why I spend less time there. That's wise. No, I can't see that happening at a hardcore level for you anyway. But you're right. Anything can happen if you're going to spend enough time absorbing. You are what you eat, kind of thing. So if you're absorbing, negativity, it certainly ends up oozing back out. Well, before we wrap this up, we've been going for an hour and 15, which feels like 10 minutes to me. Is there any perfect message you want to pass forward or have thoughts or advice regarding technology and eye care and just in general regarding the future of the Golden State and optician work? Nice. I know that everything takes years. Just because we're introducing legislation in the fall. We know darn well that nothing's going to really hit the ground running until the end of 27 in terms of implementation, and probably unfortunately into 28. But if you're laying the foreground for how you're going to take care of who's here and doing the work already, and how people are going to be initiated and brought in at certain education basic levels going forward, it's a win-win for everybody. But optometry ought to feel a little encroached upon, not just from tele, but from a lot of other lanes. So partnering and coming together is really, really good. I believe in it. I think it's wise. I think it's the future of everything. All of us, optometry, ophthalmology. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's great. Out east, people would probably disagree with you, and they would not want them involved at a legislative level, which is ridiculous. No, right, right, right. What was your best takeaway of Chicago before we wrap everything up for good? Right, cool. Now, was that specific product or field? Field, right. Right, that's really cool. Right, right, right. Well, and eventually, that's as you create that, or as you throw ideas into a system to have it created. I mean, obviously, we don't want to, we don't want to go too far down that AI road, but that is building those bridges is going to make connecting ophthalmology, optometry, and opticianry way, way, way easier. You know, when they're all in place and things can zoom across from place to place for patients all over the place, everything should be easier. Everything, every bit of it. You know, as mad as we want to get, it's at a post for some dingbat who knows damn well they shouldn't have left their toric lenses in the hotel and they're 2 states away and whatever. Oh, they haven't had an eye exam and they're 6 months past due. Yeah, there's 1,000 reasons to chastise and get mad about something, but fix the damn thing. Let's give everybody a pass, but let's have it all interconnected somehow. And I get yelled at about that. People don't like that idea. But at the end of the day, all your other healthcare is that way. So, boom. I think that we just got cut off. Boom. Well, I don't know if we're going to wrap this up with or without Rick, but this has been, wait, I don't know if he's coming back in or not. This has been a fantastic interview and episode with Rick Peralta, the Optical Jedi. I'm your host, Peter Precht. It's Optometry Profits Revealed. Thank you so much for another episode. If you have a moment, please check the Profit Prescription Quiz. Take it. We'll get in touch with you. Thank you so much. Oh, is he coming back in?
Of course, we drop right there at the end.
No, that's perfectly good. It's all good. Thank you so much for being here. We'll edit out the blips and the blurbs and whatnot, but this has been a fantastic interview, and I've been very, very happy to do this, and I do really mean that. We're probably connect again between now and
please,
the
yes,
fall or whatnot, and actually
yeah,
talk about branding.
That sounds great.
Personal branding as an optician, I think, is something that people would be very interested in. I know I am, and I think it's actually part of the future of what we're doing. In my own mind, it is. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It's been another episode of Optometry Profits Revealed. I'm your host, Peter Precht. Thank you so much.